más baratos, con descuentos en habitaciones de hotel, alquiler de carros y grandes ofertas en paquetes para cualquier lugar del mundo. No importa su destino, podemos ayudarle.
Gracias, Vuelos y Más.
¿Qué espera? Llame ya.
Let's dive right into Canomics. Tell me more about Canomics and what you do, how you got there, etc.
Yeah, thank you so much for this interview and this opportunity to talk about Canomics. So I'm Leena Pradhan-Knapstick. I am the CEO and co-founder of Canomics. We are based out of Cambridge, Massachusetts, and Rochester, Minnesota. And at Canomics, we use genomics, bioinformatics, and AI-focused technologies to help companies in the dietary supplement, functional food, functional beverage industries develop safe and efficacious products. So we work with other companies so they can develop and produce the best products for their consumers.
So these products that you're talking about, right? I mean, you are trying to do more personalized validation of, personalized supplements in a way, and other food products that are ingested by people. So what is the problem statement that we are trying to deal with here? Is that a situation where many of these products are not tested properly? Talk a little bit about that, Dr. Pradhan.
Yeah. So let me go back to your one other question that you had asked. How did we get started? So along with me, we have two other co-founders at Canomics, Dr. Manoj Bhasin and Dr. Frank Lucerfo. And all three of us met as faculty members at Harvard Medical School. And we come from your typical pharma biotech backgrounds. My PhD is in pharmacology. Manoj is a PhD in genomics, bioinformatics, and Frank is a surgeon. And what happened was a few years ago, we started seeing this trend in the Western world, in the US especially, where people were using these natural products and dietary supplements to manage their health and wellness. And both Manoj and I, we grew up in India, where we use these products or have been using these products for centuries. And now we started seeing that people in the other parts of the world also trying to use these products. And so we got curious and wanted to understand, how does a consumer decide what product to buy? Where do they start getting the information? And what we soon realized was that a lot of the consumers depend on other consumers and word of mouth or through internet to really understand what are the benefits of these products. And then we started, as scientists, we started looking into what kind of science is used in developing these products. And of course, there are a lot of companies that use science in developing the products. But overall, if you look at this industry, science comes later. Marketing is where most of the dollars are spent. And we, as scientists, thought that we could bring most value to this industry by providing our expertise, which was in science, which was in genomics, bioinformatics. So our goal was to use the most cutting-edge science so that companies who don't have the bandwidth or who don't have internal R&D processes can use us as their extended R&D collaborator and develop products that are good in quality and are validated for their effect. So that's how we got started with Canomics. And then your question that you just asked, what are the challenges? What is the problem statement? I think part of that I just answered. The problem statement is that more and more people are using these products. They want to know if these products are safe, if they're efficacious, what kind of science was used in their development. And there are very few answers because there are not, again, too many companies who are using science for product development. And that's where we step in. We are solving the problem for the industry, but in the end, we're solving the problem for the consumer. So the consumer gets safe and efficacious products. And then there was another question about quality and testing. Believe it or not, we do have systems in place through the FDA, through other agencies to make sure that there are quality products that are being sold. So although the FDA doesn't regulate these products like they regulate the pharma products, at least in the US, where you have to go through several different clinical trials before you can bring a product to the market, the FDA does post-market monitoring. And if there are any challenges, if there are any problems, FDA can come and shut the product down or have recalls, etc., and which are not very uncommon. You'll see that happen all the time. And so right now, the state of the field basically for testing these products or these ingredients is what we call chemical analysis. So you can have an ingredient or you can have a product, and let's say it's made up of turmeric plus ashwagandha, for example, or green tea with vitamin C, for example. You can test if there is vitamin C in there or not, or if there is ashwagandha in there or not, or if there is turmeric, or maybe even how much. But that still doesn't answer the question, does this turmeric now have a biological effect? Is that going to be a good effect? Is that going to be a bad effect? And that's the problem that we're trying to solve, is test the ingredient, whether it is good ingredient, meaning is it going to have a biological effect? And once you have a formulation, validate the whole formula, because your formulation may have more than one ingredient. So we want to make sure that those ingredients work better together for you. And so that's what we do. So we test the ingredient and then we test the whole formulation.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's very interesting, Dr. Pradhan. Well, we'll talk a little bit about genomics also. And our last the guest on our last segment was Dr. James Abraham, who heads the oncology division at Cleveland Clinic, and we discuss a lot about personalization of medicine and how genomics is being used in healthcare. So here, how are you using genomics in what I would say a move towards more personalized food, so to speak, or at least personalized supplements at this point?
Yeah, so just a little bit 101 biology here. So we are born with two sets of genes. One we inherit from our father, one we inherit from our mother, and then there are slight differences in there that get added on, and that's who you are. That's your genomic fingerprint, right? That's what you're born with. And that, sometimes, unfortunately, families, there are hereditary conditions that get, transferred from one generation to the other. But that is all part of your genome. But what happens is your environment, your lifestyle, your stressors, for example, or if you face any infections, that is what determines which of those genes that you're born with are going to get turned on or off. And that in biology we call DNA transcription. And what happens is your DNA then becomes this messenger RNA. We heard a lot about RNA during COVID times, and we all, our body responds to a stimulus by making that DNA into RNA. And RNA then becomes protein, and then protein is what you see that has an effect on your symptoms or on your physiology. So at Economics, what we look for is how does a given ingredient, be it a food ingredient, be it even pharma ingredients, they all work the same way. Or if there is any stimulus, outside stimulus, stressors, pollution, how does that affect your gene expression? Okay, that transcription from DNA to RNA, because that is what we can really control. Like I said, you're born with your genes, and there are very few things that can change that. But what you can change on a day-to-day basis is, which of your genes can be turned on and which of your genes can be turned off. And again, your lifestyle really plays a big role in that. And so at Economics, we always focus on that because that's where we think is an actionable step in your biology, right? And so now, coming back to your earlier point that you talked to the head of genomics, Dr. Abrams, and in cancer, a lot of cancers are different from each other. Somebody may have a lung cancer, but the DNA that is affected could be affected in different ways. So now, technology and the Human Genome Project has made it possible for us to design drugs to exactly focus on that difference, that gene mutation. And so that is how, a lot of drugs in the cancer world work. But in the food and in the natural product industry, we cannot really change or really go after the DNA. What we are going after is that the RNA. How can we change the gene expression? And so when you talk about personalization, what we want to do is look at, okay, so I'll just give you an example, right? It's summertime, we are, traveling a lot and very little sleep, and, and I'm still working. And so maybe my bad genes are turned on and my good genes are turned off. And what can I do to bring my my body to my normal self. And so maybe I have to, drink maybe coffee, or maybe take turmeric with ginger, or so, some of those things that are natural to really tune it back. Okay, so that's me. My husband is traveling with me, but his body responds to it in a different way. So he may need something else. And so that's how we can personalize these ingredients and make formulations that is suited for one person versus the other. And that's what we ultimately want to do at Economics. And we have already built tools to do that. Ultimately, our mission is to, or our long-term vision really is to make food as medicine a reality, right? And all these everyday foods and spices, for example, really do have effect beyond just regular nutrition. And so we want to make sure that, those spices or those ingredients, work for you and for your other family members, very specific for your needs. And that's where the personalization comes into play, because we really need to understand what is my RNA profile, or my what we call the transcriptome profile, which of my genes are turned on and which of my genes are turned off, and how do I manipulate that with these food ingredients. And so we have our technology called Gene Tune that will help us do that at a personal level.
Taking a trip in the next 12 months? Airlines are under tremendous pressure, and they're practically giving away their unsold seats. Like every crisis, this one will end too. But right now is the best time to take advantage of giveaway ticket prices on their unsold seats. We're not allowed to publish these low fares online. The only way to get these rock bottom giveaway prices is to call. So phone low-cost airlines now for airline ticket prices you may never see again.
Hey, are you a small business owner that's struggling to double or triple your revenue and profits? My name is Michael Rager. I'm your business guide with Teach Your Business to Fish. Our success operating system will help you double or triple your profits every 2 to 3 years while actually maintaining some semblance of a home life. Call us at 713-201-5559 and we'll help you become a real success.
Tax audits, tax liens, wage garnishments.
Every day we hear stories like this about good folks who are simply struggling to pay their bills. Each of them are living a frightening IRS tax nightmare, and they are afraid it will destroy their lives. If you're struggling with your own tax nightmare, we've got great news. The Tax Relief Line is here to help you. Now, you have a knowledgeable, professional team of tax experts that are ready to negotiate with the IRS and fight for you to save you money. The Tax Relief Line's professionals have successfully negotiated thousands of cases, reducing and sometimes even eliminating the tax debt for their clients. It's very easy to get started. Simply call the number on your screen right now. You don't have to live in fear anymore. The call and the consultation are free.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost.
My name is Andrew Glisson. Over the past 4 years, I've built a portfolio of over 200 single-family rental properties that generate over $200,000 a month in income. I've put together a 6-step formula to help you consistently acquire rental properties that cash flow $250,000 or more a month and have $30,000 or more of equity built into them. This includes starting right, becoming bankable, buying right, renovating right, exit strategies, property management, and many more modules. Best of all, If you're not totally blown away by the content, we offer a 30-day, no questions asked, money-back guarantee. If you're ready to build generational wealth for you and your family, look me up at sfruniversity.com.
Hey, Lily says AT&T is giving everyone their best deals.
Minus the air quotes.
Best deals.
No need to wink. Others say they give everyone a deal, but not everyone gets the best deal.
Told you, the best deals are for everyone here, with a choice of plans.
You were right.
Is she always right?
Always.
At AT&T, we give everyone our best deals on every smartphone.
The best bilingual news, business talk, and technology content 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You are watching Now Media Television, the first bilingual media network in the United States.
Hola, soy Isabela Gómez ayudando a Smokey Bear porque él tiene mucho más que decir que solo...
Solo tú puedes prevenir incendios forestales.
Si estás afuera disfrutando de una barbacoa después de una larga caminata, asegúrate de no tirar tus brasas o cenizas calientes al suelo, porque podría provocar un incendio forestal. Toma en serio la prevención de incendios forestales y salvemos el mundo un día a la vez. Juntos con Smokey Bear podemos hacerlo. Ve a smokeybear.com para obtener más información.
Todos quieren boletos de avión baratos, pero ¿dónde los encuentras? Llamando a Vuelos y Más. Sus precios vienen directamente de las aerolíneas y son tan bajos que no los vas a encontrar publicados en ningún otro sitio. Nos especializamos en garantizarles los boletos de avión más baratos, con descuentos en habitaciones de hotel, alquiler de carros y grandes ofertas en paquetes para cualquier lugar del mundo. No importa su destino, podemos ayudarle.
Gracias, Vuelos y Más.
¿Qué espera? Llame ya.
Oh, it's really interesting to know that we are able to get the gene level in terms of understanding the impact of these supplements and basically even food. And I think this is we are in the very early stages of this technology breakthrough is what I would say. We just struggle, just even now we don't know. I mean, honestly, how simple things like we have this whole debate about let's say eggs and cholesterol, and who and does it impact everyone the same way, or alcohol, or even smoking. And because we keep hearing about people who've been eating all this, drinking, and everything that you said don't do, and living up to like 100+ years, while some others who are living in a very supposedly healthy lifestyle are not living that long. So what are those factors? And more we are hearing that more and more people are saying that, hey, what do you put into your body matters. And so I think this exactly is what the world would need and I think it's really great that you've made this started to work on this. So Dr. Pradhan, what actually made you think about this? I mean, there are so many things. Like, I was talking to some person yesterday who said that the apple falls from the tree. It has been falling from the tree for a long, long time. But it's only Newton who looked at that and said, hey, why is this falling? Must be gravity, right? That kind of an approach. So what really triggered the genesis of Kenomics?
Yeah, so going back to that point, again, I grew up in India, and when you grow up in India, you are asked to use haldi, which is turmeric, for everything, right? If you have a cut on your hand, put turmeric on it. If you have a sore throat, drink turmeric milk. If you have bellyache, eat ginger, right? So we grew up with that. And like I said, Manoj grew up with that as well. And we know these things work. They have been working people have been using it for centuries. We know that and on top of it, we know that a lot of Western medicine is derived from plants. Think about a lot of cancer drugs. We brought up cancer, alkaloids, Vinca alkaloids, right? Digitalis for heart disease. So we know that plants have medicinal properties. What has enabled us to then further go and look into the very basis of these ingredients is the latest technologies, right? The genomics and the bioinformatics and computing, crunching all that data together. And so we were already doing that for our academic work. And when we started Economics, I think that's when we had first connected. Our initial goal was to bring, using our gene tune technology, design formulations, bring them to the market, and then we realized that, well, we are three scientists who are getting into this industry. There are not too many of us. And how can we really touch all the aspects of this industry? We can always bring products to the market, but how can we have a bigger impact? And that is what really made us go down the path that we have gone down with Economics. Instead of bringing just a few products to the market, we thought maybe we can really help the industry, right? From product validation that we talked about to testing the ingredients. And, we had this idea. And again, that was brought to us when we started talking to the stakeholders in the industry. What are your challenges? How can we help you with this science and help each other out? And this problem with ingredient, in fact, was brought to us by one of our clients, and we asked them, so how did you solve this ingredient problem? Oh, we went to this country and bought all the farms. And we said, oh, that's great, because you have a lot of money. Not everyone can do that. And so then, we had more conversations. And again, over and over, this ingredient challenge was brought to us, because if you think about it, right? We talked about the human body and the genes. So genes form sort of the fundamental aspect of our body, right? And then when you think about food and food materials, it's the ingredient, right? Adding or not adding an ingredient can make a whole lot of difference, from taste to the texture to whatever, your whole experience, right? So the ingredient forms the basis of food. And what we really thought was, we really need to understand what is the connection between the two, right? How does a given ingredient affect human genes and thereby human wellness? And so that was the question we kept asking. If we know how one ingredient affects the human genes, can we now add another one? What would that look like? Would they cancel out each other's effect? Would they enhance, or would they just be additive, or would they make each other unsafe? So we kept going back to that question of, how does an ingredient affect the basis of human life, which is human genes? And so that's how we got started with Economics. And then, as we thought about this problem of ingredient, we needed money. And we applied for a grant to the National Science Foundation, and they loved the idea. So last year, we got funded by the National Science Foundation through what they call the SBIR grant, to really develop this whole platform now for testing these ingredients for batch to batch before they're made into product. Think about it. These ingredients come from plants. You have different regions where these plants are grown. You have different harvest times. And now, on top of it, climate issues and weather issues, things have changed so much for the same plant over time. And so how do we make sure that you're getting the same quality and your plant is going to get the same effect even when you extract it? Because you have to keep them natural. So you cannot synthesize them beyond a certain point. And people want natural products. So there are all these challenges. And so we thought, instead of bringing one or two products to the market, let's solve the bigger issues in the industry using the science, using what we know best to do, which is, again, using science. So yeah, that's how we got started with Economics.
Yep. Oh, it's very, very good to know about that, Dr. Pradhan. So we talked about the what, how, but let's talk a little bit about the how. So once you get into a little bit more on the science, so basically, you get the ingredient and then you use, where do you put them in, or how do you test them out? You put them in live models, or how does that whole thing work?
Yeah, so for the product validation, where we test the whole formulation, we get the ingredient samples from, let's say, a CPG company, a consumer product company, or even from a supplier. Depends who we are working with. They send their sample to us. We have a lab partner here in Massachusetts. We work with them, and you asked about the model. So we use commercially available human cells. So those of who are not in science, we can buy human cells for research purposes and any kind of research, pharma research, biotech research. So those are the same types of cells that we use for in Economics as research. So then we add that sample or that whole formulation to those cells, and then look at Then we use a process called RNA sequencing. And then we look at what are the genes that were affected by that formulation using that cell type. And then we can look at all 20,000 plus human genes. And and as scientists, we understand what are the implications of those genes, what genes are involved in what kind of condition or for managing what kind of health. And so then that's how we make our inferences as to, what is the chance of, and the reason we have to go about that way is you don't want to go directly into a clinical trial because you want to test it step by step. Clinical trials can be expensive. They can be, and if you don't have a right design for a clinical trial, they may fail. And you may have a good product, and it may just be that your clinical trial was not designed properly. So that solution of ours helps you design a clinical trial, helps you narrow down. Let's say you had 3 formulations, maybe one was the best one, and you can go ahead with that formulation. So that's what we do for our product validation. For the ingredient testing, which is what we are still developing, and that's funded by the NSF, our ultimate goal, again, it's the same. Instead of a whole formulation, we will be testing that one ingredient for every batch of that ingredient that the producer, manufacturer may be using. And this time, it's not going to be, we won't be analyzing all 20,000 genes. What we are doing at the back end is really understanding how a given ingredient affects a set of genes, what we call the biomarkers or diagnostic markers. And we will only look at those 20 or 50 genes because the benchmark that we create is based on those few gene biomarkers. And again, it's a lab-based service. And then the third one, which is GeneTune, which is the exciting one, which is slightly different, is where we can design formulation as a one-size-fits-all, like what you get right now in the industry. You just go to Amazon or go to Whole Foods and buy a bottle of something, and we can design those formulations and again validate them. Or in the future, we are already working on personalizing them, like we talked about earlier. What works for Dr. Saji may not work for me, may not work for somebody else. So how can we design those formulations? So those are the 3 things that we do.
My name is Andrew Glisson. Over the past 4 years, I've built a portfolio of over 200 single-family rental properties that generate over $200,000 a month in income. I've put together a 6-step formula to help you consistently acquire rental properties that cash flow $250,000 or more a month and have $30,000 or more of equity built into them. This includes starting right, becoming bankable, buying right, renovating right, exit strategies, property management, and many more modules. Best of all, if you're not totally blown away by the content, we offer a 30-day, no questions asked, money-back guarantee. If you're ready to build generational wealth for you and your family, look me up at sfruniversity.com.
Hey, Lily says AT&T is giving everyone their best deals.
Minus the air quotes.
Best deals.
No need to wink. Others say they give everyone a deal, but not everyone gets the best deal.
Told you, the best deals are for everyone here, with a choice of plans.
You were right.
Is she always right?
Always.
At AT&T, we give everyone our best deals on every smartphone.
The best bilingual news, business talk, and technology content 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You are watching Now Media Television, the first bilingual media network in the United States.
Hola, soy Isabela Gómez ayudando a Smokey Bear porque él tiene mucho más que decir que solo...
Solo tú puedes prevenir incendios forestales.
Si estás afuera disfrutando de una barbacoa después de una larga caminata, asegúrate de no tirar tus brasas o cenizas calientes al suelo, porque podría provocar un incendio forestal. Toma en serio la prevención de incendios forestales y salvemos el mundo un día a la vez. Juntos con Smokey Bear podemos hacerlo. Ve a smokeybear.com para obtener más información.
Todos quieren boletos de avión baratos, pero ¿dónde los encuentras? Llamando a Vuelos y Más. Sus precios vienen directamente de las aerolíneas y son tan bajos que no los vas a encontrar publicados en ningún otro sitio. Nos especializamos en garantizarles los boletos de avión más baratos, con descuentos en habitaciones de hotel, alquiler de carros y grandes ofertas en paquetes para cualquier lugar del mundo. No importa su destino, podemos ayudarle.
Gracias, Vuelos y Más.
¿Qué espera? ¡Llame ya!
Interesting perspectives here, Dr. Pradhan. And we touched upon genomics and broadly bioinformatics, but could you speak a little bit to the role of bioinformatics in this whole business model?
Yeah, so bioinformatics is basically crunching all the biological data. So you have, market analysis, market informatics, and, tech people use informatics all the time. Here, if you think about it, we have 20,000 plus genes. And, when we get the data from one study, it's like about 4 to 6 terabytes of data that we generate. A lot of times we get lost in that data. How do you make sense of that data? And bioinformatics is just a field of science where that allows you to really understand what are the pathways, what we call the cellular pathways or the functional pathways that anything can affect. Let's take example of turmeric. So if I treat my cells with turmeric, then I extract the RNA, I do the RNA sequencing. And what that means is I get like this huge amounts of raw data. Oh, this gene is up, that gene is down, this gene is up this much, that gene is down that much. So what? What does that mean to health and wellness, right? On the other hand, we know, using again bioinformatics tools, which of the genes are involved in what kind of a condition. If somebody has, I have a lot of allergies. So which genes are affected in allergies, right? And so we can now make connection between the two. Okay, this ingredient affects this gene. This gene is affected in this type of allergy. Can we now make a connection between the two? So those are some of the bioinformatics tools that we can use. The other tools are where on just purely on the clinical side, when you get clinical trials data or a clinical research data, from let's say blood samples of lots of people, right? Let's say it's a diabetes study. Again, you get tons of this data, terabytes and terabytes of data. You then have to go through that and really look statistically which genes are really affected, which genes are not affected. What have we seen in other conditions? So that's how bioinformatics allows you to make connections between genes, connections between cell types, connections between disease conditions. And so it makes it easier to understand that data, right? So that's how bioinformatics works in genomics.
Mm-hmm. So, going back to the turmeric example you talked about, some of the benefits of using turmeric would be a reduction of inflammation. So are we able to then run those models, and then bioinformatics is able to say that, hey, I see this gene expression here, there, and inflammation is down here, and then make those connections? Is that what bioinformatics does by sitting on top of this data that is generated?
Exactly. So that's how, again, turmeric is a great example because we have a lot of studies, right? And so we can always also compare to other data sets that are available. And we've done this at Economics, where we have curated a data set for turmeric. That was the work done by other people. And we looked at published studies and made sense of that data, again, looking at the gene expression data. And then we tested it ourselves, different versions of turmeric, analytical grade, some commercial brands in our lab. And actually, believe it or not, there was a lot of overlap that we saw between the data that we had created, what we call in silico, just looking at others data that was available, versus the data, the actual test we did using a physically available turmeric. And so that's exactly what it will tell you, because we know what genes are involved in inflammation, right? At this point, we have many years of human genome data now available, and so many of these clinical trials data. We know what genes are affected in inflammation. And again, inflammation now can be so many different types of inflammation, right? An acute inflammation versus a chronic disease inflammation versus an infectious disease inflammation. And so we can even parse it out to that level. And so exactly that's what bioinformatics will help you understand which are the genes that are affected, but then what do those genes mean? What kind of inflammation is affected? And again, going back to my example of if we mix things, how would that then affect that inflammatory pathway? Or a lot of times now when you go to your PCP, they will ask you, oh, give me a list of, just want to check these are the medicines you're taking. And now they have also started asking you, are there other over-the-counter products that you use like dietary supplements? Because believe it or not, there are drug dietary supplement interactions, right? And if you think about very basic thing, we eat something, it affects our genes, and that's why it affects our physiology. So that's your food. You take medicine, it affects your genes, it affects your physiology. So at some point, you have to start thinking about these interactions between not just food or ingredient, but also drugs and ingredients, right? So those are the types of things that bioinformatics will allow you to test. So there will be a database of drugs and their interactions with genes. And at Cannomics, we have a data set of 250 botanical ingredients and their interactions with genes. And so we can, if somebody is taking some sort of, let's say, for example, statin, which is very commonly used in this country, or any kind of blood pressure drug. And now if they start taking a certain dietary supplement, is that going to affect that? So those are the types of things that bioinformatics will allow you to test.
Mm-hmm. So at this point, you are not doing drug interactions, right? Meaning drug interactions in the pharmaceutical world with supplements, or are you doing that already?
Yeah, so we already have a data set that we can run against dietary supplements, to look at the interactions. The challenge with the dietary supplement data set, the drug database is, much more well established. The challenge on the botanical ingredients and the herbal ingredients is that we can rely on the data that's available, or maybe we cannot do everything in our lab ourselves. So the more studies are done using these products, the more data we get, the smarter our algorithms become, right? So again, we have to rely on what's already available for the data set and what we can in-house, because these tests can be expensive. This research can be expensive. What can we generate in-house? And so that's a little bit of a challenge on the botanical ingredient side. But I think the industry is waking up to the reality that, we have all these tools available now, and there are companies like us who are willing to help them. And B, this is what the consumer wants. The younger generation consumer, they want to know everything, right? Where was this plant grown? How was it harvested? What kind of, human resources were used, and the supply chain and all of that, right? So we are just a tiny part of that whole supply chain. But I think, the more these types of studies that are done, the better it is for everybody involved.
Mm-hmm. And just going back to that turmeric example, right? Because there's a lot of studies done on turmeric. So, I mean, I think, I don't know, this is more of a question to you. Are we at a point where we can say that, hey, when we say turmeric, these are the standard expectations in terms of gene expressions and whatnot, and then now you have a control, so to speak, against which you can benchmark other turmeric formulations out there. And maybe I think that's also a segue into the CAN-TRUST labeling that you provide for some of the ingredient testing. Is that related, or could you speak to that standardization and control part of the
equation? So that's the goal, is to create standards, not just for turmeric, but for different ingredients. So turmeric was our prototype for our National Science Foundation grant. And again, we used a analytical grade turmeric to develop that standard. And like you said, now we can get samples from customers. And then if that customer sample passes the test, then we can provide them with our CAN-TRUST by Cannomics seal of certification. And our goal is to expand that to other botanical ingredients. So for example, we are working with Ocean Spray to build something like that for cranberry. We've already done some work with them before. The other ingredient is elderberry. I don't know if you know much about elderberry, but it's marketed for its anti-inflammatory effects. So during COVID time, elderberry growth was something like 200% or something. But at the same time, there is shortage of the supply. And so with that, there are challenges around supply chain where there is outright fraud. There is a organization called American Botanical Council, and them and a couple other trade organizations work together for an adulterant program to identify these adulterants. Again, the challenge here is there are few bad actors in the industry that bring bad name to everyone. So what we want to do is elevate the whole industry. If a consumer sees our Can Trust by Economics seal of approval, they should be assured that this is a tested, the ingredient that's used in this product is tested by Economics or a similar standard, and it's safe to use. And so that's exactly what we want to do, is create standards for many different ingredients. One of the questions that I've been asked in the past is around the costs, right? This is not for pharma industry. The returns are not, thousands of dollars. So we have to be very cognizant of that, very aware of the challenges within you have to have a quick turnaround time. You can be charging thousands and thousands of dollars for one test. So the reason the National Science Foundation funded us on top of that, this idea is phenomenal, but also because we have come up with our own proprietary methods where we can shorten the time and cost of the test so that the industry, again, our goal is to bring as much science as possible to everyone in the industry. And this was one way for us to reach the broader market, because for our product validation, we're already serving the big players, but we wanted to go beyond that and really revolutionize how these products are made and just make it safe for everyone. So yes, so Can Trust by Economics would be our seal where you can be assured that it's a product you can trust.
My name is Andrew Glisson. Over the past 4 years, I've built a portfolio of over 200 single-family rental properties that generate over $200,000 a month in income. I've put together a 6-step formula to help you consistently acquire rental properties that cash flow $250,000 or more a month and have $30,000 or more of equity built into them. This includes starting right, becoming bankable, buying right, renovating right, exit strategies, property management, and many more modules. Best of all, if you're not totally blown away by the content, we offer a 30-day, no questions asked, money-back guarantee. If you're ready to build generational wealth for you and your family, look me up at sfruniversity.com.
Hey, Lily says AT&T's giving everyone their best deals.
Minus the air quotes.
Best deals.
No need to wink. Others say they give everyone a deal, but not everyone gets the best deal.
Told you, the best deals are for everyone here, with a choice of plans.
You were right.
Is she always right?
Always.
At AT&T, we give everyone our best deals on every smartphone.
The best bilingual news, business talk, and technology content 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You are watching Now Media Television, the first bilingual media network in the United States.
Hola, soy Isabela Gómez ayudando a Smokey Bear porque él tiene mucho más que decir que solo...
Solo tú puedes prevenir incendios forestales.
Si estás afuera disfrutando de una barbacoa después de una larga caminata, asegúrate de no tirar tus brasas o cenizas calientes al suelo, porque podría provocar un incendio forestal. Toma en serio la prevención de incendios forestales y salvemos el mundo un día a la vez. Juntos con Smokey Bear podemos hacerlo. Ve a smokeybear.com para obtener más información.
Todos quieren boletos de avión baratos, pero ¿dónde los encuentras? Llamando a Vuelos y Más. Sus precios vienen directamente de las aerolíneas y son tan bajos que no los vas a encontrar publicados en ningún otro sitio. Nos especializamos en garantizarles los boletos de avión más baratos, con descuentos en habitaciones de hotel, alquiler de carros y grandes ofertas en paquetes para cualquier lugar del mundo. No importa su destino, podemos ayudarle.
Gracias, Vuelos y Más.
¿Qué espera? Llame ya.
Taking a trip in the next 12 months? Airlines are under tremendous pressure and they're practically giving away their unsold seats. Like every crisis, this one will end too. But right now is the best time to take advantage of giveaway ticket prices on their unsold seats. We're not allowed to publish these low fares online. The only way to get these rock bottom giveaway prices is to call. So phone low-cost airlines now for airline ticket prices you may never see again.
Hey, are you a small business owner that's struggling to double or triple your revenue and profits? My name is Michael Rager. I'm your business guide with Teach Your Business to Fish. Our success operating system will help you double or triple your profits every 2 to 3 years while actually maintaining some semblance of a home life. Call us at 713-201-5559 and we'll help you become a real success.
Tax audits, tax liens, wage garnishments.
Every day we hear stories like this about good folks who are simply struggling to pay their bills. Each of them are living a frightening IRS tax nightmare, and they are afraid it will destroy their lives. If you're struggling with your own tax nightmare, we've got great news. The Tax Relief Line is here to help you. Now, you have a knowledgeable, professional team of tax experts that are ready to negotiate with the IRS and fight for you to save you money. The Tax Relief Line's professionals have successfully negotiated thousands of cases, reducing and sometimes even eliminating the tax debt for their clients. It's very easy to get started. Simply call the number on your screen right now. You don't have to live in fear anymore. The call and the consultation are free.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost.
And to, let's say, to come to a standardization of a product, I think that it involves a lot of testing, right? I mean, it's hundreds of samples before you can really say that, hey, this is what a standard looks like. So how is that being funded? Are there research grants that are providing? And I can see ton of work in front of you to get to that place, right, where you can with a decent amount of confidence say that, hey, this is what turmeric should look like, kind of, and the equivalent of that in the pharmaceutical world is that we have a lot of that, right? When we say ibuprofen, we know what the expectation is and what it should, what should it be? So to get to that point, are there more people working on the research on this front? Is there more research needed? What do you see the horizon for something along those lines?
Yeah, that's a great question. I love that question. I'm sure my National Science Foundation reviewers had that same question too. So, like you brought up a great example, ibuprofen, right? If you go use a Target brand or, I don't know, Costco brand or CVS brand, ibuprofen is ibuprofen because it's synthetically made. You expect if you're, it's the same person using it, probably they're going to have the same effect, right? The challenge with botanicals, however, is that they, like I said, they change from harvest to harvest, from crop strain to crop strain. And because we cannot really over-synthesize them, you have to keep them natural. Even if you extract them, there are other molecules that, so let's say turmeric is a great example again. The active molecules in turmeric are called curcumin or curcuminoids. And there are different percentages of curcumin that you can find in a given extract or from a given plant, right? And how do you control for that? Because curcumin is curcumin, that's the main active ingredient or molecule within turmeric. But then there are all these smaller molecules, or not smaller in size molecule, but presence of these other molecules in smaller amounts that do have an effect on that curcumin. And they also change from batch to batch, right? And so at some point, you get lost. Like, what is it that you should expect? Like you're saying, what is the expected result of curcumin? And you're absolutely right. We need a lot of data points. So for this particular grant that we worked with turmeric, we actually sourced a few different analytical grade turmeric, and this is how we will be going about for our other ingredients as well. And we had to figure out which ones, doing some lab-based tests, which ones were the more consistent ones that we can use for our benchmark. And then actually, in our testing, we then sourced just directly from Amazon some of the finished single ingredient curcumins, and where we knew the amount that was put on the label. So we knew if this is how much curcumin you have in this pill, then we can correlate it to that effect. And that's how we have to keep using more and more of these ingredients. And this is where AI comes into play, right? We talked about AI just earlier. AI is, what is it? Making sense of the data, right? The more data you have, the better your algorithms get, right? And so that's exactly the technology we are using in creating our standards. It's basically relying on AI methods to, if this is curcumin, how many more samples do I need to really make sure that this is the effect it should have, right? And then I can start testing them. So right now we are just creating prototypes. The other thing that we are trying to do to get around this problem is work with some big organizations, or get their advice rather. So United States Pharmacopoeia is where they create a lot of standards for drugs, for pretty much a lot of things that we consume. And so we are getting some advice from their scientists as well as to where to source some of these ingredients from. So we are just piggybacking on what they create the analytical standards. So we are using those standards to create what we call the biological effect standard. So, again, the more we test, the more data we have, the smarter these algorithms get, right? So that's the goal, that we want to test more, because ultimately where we start now and where we may end in 2 years after we test, like, let's say 500 samples of turmeric, that signature, that diagnostic biomarker may look slightly different. And that's science, right? Science is not, absolutely, this is where it ends. No, we have to look at the data, let the data tell you or teach you what direction to take. So we have to start somewhere. So we have started with a small data set, and as we do more and more of these testings, it'll get smarter, and we'll get to that point of that expected result at some point. So
no, I think it's as you alluded to earlier, the very nature of botanical ingredients is really hard to standardize, right? Because of so many factors, from weather to rain to climate change. And so maybe the path may not be to strive for an absolute standard, but something close enough to a standard, and then benchmark against it. And like you said, as more and more studies are done, the standard will get stronger a little by little. But to set the expectation right would be key here, because this is not pharmaceuticals where it's chemical, where you have absolute control over what you can produce, respect to where you are in the world, versus these are plants, right? These are, natural ingredients. And so it is a lot more harder to get to that standard. And if we have that understanding, it's a good starting point, and also close enough to where it is now, where we don't even know what you're getting, right?
Right, exactly. And that's,
it says this is curcumin. Who knows what it is? Could be just some yellow powder.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And,
you touched that point. Right now there is nothing, right? So you have to get started somewhere. Is this like perfect science, or the perfect understanding? Not. I'm just saying that upfront. But we have to get started somewhere, and at least make sure things are safe, right? And at least make sure they have some effect. And believe it or not, we were surprised by the results that we found. And actually, I presented those results at the American Society for Pharmacognosy conference. It was a science conference a couple of weeks ago. We were surprised by the results we got. Some commercial brands matched exactly with the analytical standard, and some commercial brands were very far off. And so, it's and again, as a scientist, that gets me excited, right? The data, like, you start off with a hypothesis, and then, what you think it was going to happen, these popular brands are going to match exactly And then that's not the case, and some obscure brand matches exactly with the analytical standard, because that was, we used one of these brands because we thought, nobody knows of this, who knows, and the result was exactly the opposite. And we can already see, and then we have tested more samples, and we can already see a pattern developing. There are some that are very close to the standard. And in fact, when we did some preliminary work, we had used turmeric just from an Indian store, and that matched very well with the analytical grade. And so, things, science is always fun and surprising. So.
Right. And for the consumer, I think, this is the crux of the issue, right? I mean, to know whether you're getting the right stuff. And again, not 100%, but at least somewhat close, right? Exactly. And I think that is where the can thrust branding can become very useful, because there's now a scientific body. I mean, it not really officially scientific, but at least somebody close enough who's looking at it, running through scientific models and making sure that this is what is stated and this is what you're getting for it. When you talk about any ingredient, I think that's a great gap that needs to be filled for the consumers. So thanks for taking the leap in doing this. It's just a massive problem that needs to be solved, and it's great to see that you've come so far, and the world is waking up to that reality. And thanks again for finding the time to be on the show. Appreciate it. We'll talk soon, Dr. Pradhan.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And, you can visit our website, Kenomics.com. And I'm always happy to answer any questions. There is a question box in there if you want to send any questions to us. We love talking about science. We at the end of the day, the three of us co-founders, we always talk about it, right? We are three scientists, want to do science, want to make a difference. Money will follow. My investors may not like to hear that, but money will always follow the right product and the right service, right? But it is something that we have a huge vision and a huge mission. Again, our mission is to really bring true transparency and trust to this industry. And I think, it's exciting time for the industry. As I'm attending a lot of trade shows and a lot of conferences, there's this enthusiasm around science, which, a few years ago didn't exist, right? And so, we'll do everything that we can to bring the best products to the market. Thank you again for this opportunity to talk about Kenomics.
All right. Thanks again, Dr. Pradhan. Bye.
Bye.
Taking a trip in the next 12 months? Airlines are under tremendous pressure, and they're practically giving away their unsold seats. Like every crisis, this one will end too. But right now is the best time to take advantage of giveaway ticket prices on their unsold seats. We're not allowed to publish these low fares online. The only way to get these rock-bottom giveaway prices is to call. So phone low-cost airlines now for airline ticket prices you may never see again.
Hey, are you a small business owner that's struggling to double or triple your revenue and profits? My name is Michael Rager. I'm your business guide with Teach Your Business to Fish. Our success operating system will help you double or triple your profits every 2 to 3 years while actually maintaining some semblance of a home life. Call us at 713-201-5559 and we'll help you become a real success.
Tax audits, tax liens, wage garnishments.
Every day we hear stories like this about good folks who are simply struggling to pay their bills. Each of them are living a frightening IRS tax nightmare, and they are afraid it will destroy their lives. If you're struggling with your own tax nightmare, we've got great news. The Tax Relief Line is here to help you. Now, you have a knowledgeable, professional team of tax experts that are ready to negotiate with the IRS and fight for you to save you money. The Tax Relief Line's professionals have successfully negotiated thousands of cases, reducing and sometimes even eliminating the tax debt for their clients. It's very easy to get started. Simply call the number on your screen right now. You don't have to live in fear anymore. The call and the consultation are free.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost.